Is the Gen Z the voice for change? That's a conversation we must have. On Citizen TV, you saw how passionate young people are. You know, one even said that the president is paranoid.
I'm listening to that clip by Mr. Ruto, and I'm wondering why is he so paranoid, and asking Kenyans, kwani tuko mwaka gani? We are in 2025, and we are going to send him home in 2027, and we are the demographic that is going to do exactly that, because the injustices that he has caused on this generation are unfathomable. As the youth of Kenya, we are looking at different sectors of our economy, and we are wondering where exactly what exactly are we looking at when the healthcare system is still wanting, when students are not learning in schools. I think there's a reason to go to the ballot in 2027 than ever before. Yeah. And I like Mr. Ruto a lot because he has done one thing for this country. He has united us now more than ever in terms of being united against him. And we are going to make sure that we'll fulfill that cause, because we have a date with destiny.
Yeah, okay. The lady is so passionate about 2027, and she's certain that young people are united against President Ruto. But I doubt if that is the case. First, they're not registering as voters. You know, if you're fighting for a cause, especially when it comes to a democratic process like voting, what does it mean? You must make sure you have your voting card. But Kenyans, especially young people, they're not registering to be voters in 2027. So if you're not registering as voters for 2027, then what kind of unity are you talking about? Additionally, there's also an issue of urban frustration, especially among young people. But now, all young people are not just in urban centers, okay? We have people in rural areas also, and they also have a voice. And in fact, maybe just for information, people who are registering, especially when you talk about young people of the Gen Z, are those in villages or rural Kenya. So those are people who are going to vote. With these young people in rural Kenya, vote based on ideologies, plans, policies. Most cases, that's not the case. That's why Rogers Kipembe said that for 2027, he feels that the Gen Z wave has died. And what is going to communicate, or what is going to talk here, is money. That those politicians who have money, they're likely to win. Because what they only have to do is just to splash money. And that will persuade people, and ultimately, they'll vote for that candidate. So that goes to tell us that as much as young people are clamoring for change, they're not the real change. Because if you are the real change, then you must register as a voter. Then you should stop the abuses we see online, because what we are seeing from young people are just abuses. People are just exchanging abuses here and there. People are not having a conversation about change, about transformation in this country. Instead, they're just abusing each other. You know, abusing those who support Raila, abusing those who support Gachagua. That is not a conversation. You know, for change, people must have that conversation. You know, where people can sit down and converse and talk about issues and talk about the challenges we face as a country. Okay? That's the only way we can deliver change. We cannot deliver change through abuses, through pompous talk on television and all that. When you look at the fundamentals, and the fundamentals here are voter registration, you know, you're not registering. But when you're given an opportunity to speak on a national TV, what do? You talk pompously, because that is good for the ears, but reality is different. And I've also insisted on this point that President Ruto is still so strong come 2027, and Gen Z or young people are not united against President Ruto. Because you say that you are united against President Ruto, definitely you lose the plot. It is about the issue of we are united for change, not against an individual. Because we are seeing President Ruto is also taking critical steps to make sure that the issues of young people are addressed. We have Nyota. That is a program that is targeting actually over 800,000 young people. Perhaps annually 100,000 people will benefit, young people. So when we have such a conversation, what do you realize? You realize that President Ruto is still targeting those very, very young people. And he's addressing issues like unemployment. So that's why the Kenyan government is partnering with World Bank to make sure that young people can at least access capital to start businesses. So such people will vote for President Ruto. That's a fact. And people will benefit. They're actually young people. They're actually the Gen Z. So if the Gen Z for sure feel that they're committed to change, it shouldn't just be about beating President Ruto or defeating President Ruto at the ballot. No, that's not change. The change should be about, what you stand for, what you're fighting for, how you want that change delivered. That's the conversation people should have. The conversation shouldn't be about a certain leader is paranoid. President Ruto cannot be paranoid. He's the president. He's the president. He's not paranoid. Instead, young people, let me say this. If you want change, then register as voters and start a conversation that is national, that is objective, not about throwing tantrums here and there. That will not help. Because if you don't change how you approach this issue, you'll be so unhappy come 2027 when IBC announces that President Ruto has been re-elected. That's the point. So young people should change the conversation. The conversation shouldn't be about just President Ruto failing and condemning him. The conversation should be about what kind of change we want. Because sometimes as young people we become so complacent and think that the government owes us a lot. When it comes to research, you have the very, very people who are supposed to do research. When it comes to innovation, you have the very, very people who are supposed to do innovation. What the government is just supposed to do is to create that thriving environment. That's the point. So young people, let's be honest with each other that the conversation cannot just be about removing President Ruto from power. After all, he's still a very strong candidate. Guys, go ahead and subscribe and let's have this conversation. And I'll do a video on how people are likely to vote in 2027. And in this case, I want to focus on 3 candidates. When we have 3 strong candidates, what is likely to happen? So please keep it here on Owen Analysis.